I need to tell you something that most doctors are not making time to explain. There are 3 foods sitting in the average senior's kitchen right now. Foods that look completely harmless, foods your doctor has probably never once warned you about, and those 3 foods may be quietly taking away something that no prescription can easily give back. Your ability to walk freely, on your own terms, without holding the wall. I have spent years working with older adults on exactly this, the connection between what goes on the plate and what happens to the body that carries you through your life. And what I keep seeing is that the damage does not announce itself. It builds slowly, silently. Until one morning, the legs feel heavier than they did 6 months ago, and nobody knows when it started. Here's the number that stopped me cold when I first encountered it. According to the CDC, falls are the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injury among adults aged 65 and older. Over 14 million older adults, that is 1 in 4, report falling every year. The fall death rate in this age group has increased by 21% between 2018 and 2024 alone. Not heart attacks, not cancer, falls. And a significant number of those falls begin long before anyone sees them coming. They begin at the level of blood vessels, nerves, and the tiny signals your feet send to your brain 100 times a day just to keep you upright. In the next 14 minutes, I am going to show you exactly which 3 everyday foods may be silently weakening that system from the inside, why they behave so differently in a body over 65, and which 3 foods research shows can help you fight back starting tonight. Stay with me through the entire video, because one of the foods I am going to name later looks so healthy that almost every older adult is eating it regularly right now, and you need to hear this. Before we go further, drop a comment right now with just your age, nothing else, just a number. I want to see who is watching this, because what I am about to share applies very differently depending on whether you are 65, 72, or 80. The body changes in specific ways at each stage, and that changes which of these foods matters most for you right now. And if you have ever noticed that your legs feel heavier or less reliable after certain meals, not dramatically, just subtly different, add the word heavy to your comment. That detail matters more than you might think. Here is what is happening in homes across this country every single day. A 71-year-old woman wakes up, makes herself a large salad for lunch, proud of the habit, consistent for years. She walks every morning, she takes her medications, she does everything her doctor told her to do. But over the past 8 months, something has been shifting. The walk takes a little longer. The stairs require more focus. 3 weeks ago, she stumbled in the kitchen, caught herself on the counter, no injury, but it shook her. Her doctor tells her it is normal aging. Nobody thinks to ask what she is eating. Nobody connects the inflammation building quietly in her blood vessels to the food she has trusted for years. Nobody asks whether the salad she is so proud of is built almost entirely on iceberg lettuce. She keeps eating it. The slow drift continues. Research on inflammation, blood vessel health, and nutritional deficiency in older adults has been building for over a decade. The connections between specific dietary patterns and leg strength, circulation, and nerve function in people over 65 are documented and measurable. But that research is sitting in journals that most physicians do not have time to read, and it is almost never making it into the 15-minute appointment where it could actually change something. That gap between what the evidence shows and what gets said in the average doctor's office is costing older adults their independence. Now, if you are someone who wants to understand the why, not just be handed a list, then what I am about to explain will give you a completely different framework for thinking about food in your legs. After 65, your body is not simply an older version of what it was at 45. 3 specific biological changes make certain foods far more consequential than they were before. The first is arterial stiffness. Your blood vessels naturally lose elasticity through a process called arteriosclerosis. Think of a rubber band that has been stretched and released 10,000 times. Early on, it snaps back perfectly. After years of use, it barely moves. Stiff arteries mean blood has a harder time reaching the tissues furthest from your heart, your lower legs and feet first. The second change is nerve signal speed. The peripheral nerves in your feet constantly send positional information to your brain. Ground is flat, slight incline, adjust. Your brain uses that data to keep you balanced. As you age, the protective myelin sheath around these nerves thins, a process significantly accelerated by chronic blood sugar spikes and sustained inflammation. When those signals slow down, balance suffers. Not because muscles are weak, but because the communication line is degraded. No amount of exercise fully repairs a problem that starts at the nerve. The third change is how your body handles inflammatory food. A younger person eating a pro-inflammatory diet carries the burden with reserve capacity. An older adult does not have the same buffer. What produces low-grade inflammation in a 40-year-old becomes a meaningful driver of vascular damage in a 70-year-old. These are not small differences. They demand a completely different approach to food. And yet this is almost never accounted for in standard dietary advice. Let us start with the 3 foods that work for your body. The first is beets. I know that reaction, but stay with me because what beets do inside an aging cardiovascular system is well documented. As your arteries stiffen with age, your body produces less nitric oxide, the molecule that signals blood vessel walls to relax and widen. Nitric oxide production declines naturally as we get older, meaning less blood flow to the organs furthest from the heart. For older adults, that means the legs first. The coldness, the heaviness, the steps that feel less certain, these are often downstream consequences of reduced nitric oxide and narrowing circulation. Beets are one of the richest dietary sources of natural nitrates. When you eat them, your body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide, wider vessels, better delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the muscles and nerves in your legs. Think of your circulatory system as a city water network. When the pipes are wide and pressure is maintained, every tap in the house runs properly, including the ones at the far end. When the pipes narrow and pressure drops, the far taps are the first to fail. Your legs are the far taps. The University of Exeter published research in Free Radical Biology and Medicine showing that nitrate-rich beetroot juice significantly raised nitrite levels in older adults and that the effect was substantially greater in the older group than in younger participants. Their blood pressure dropped by a clinically significant 4 millimeters of mercury or more, a meaningful measurable shift in vascular health from food alone. Beets also contain folate, which protects blood vessel linings from chronic inflammation. A few servings weekly, roasted in a salad, blended into a smoothie with berries and ginger, can produce measurable changes in how your legs feel over time. The second protective food is sweet potatoes. Most people assume potatoes are potatoes. The difference is actually enormous, and it matters far more than most people ever get told. Sweet potatoes have a significantly lower glycemic index than white potatoes. They release glucose slowly and steadily rather than in a sharp spike. That distinction matters more after 65 than at any earlier point in your life. The nerves in your feet and lower legs are fed by tiny capillaries. When blood sugar spikes repeatedly over months and years, those capillaries sustain cumulative damage. They narrow. Blood flow to the nerve endings slows. And when nerve endings receive less oxygen, they begin sending degraded signals or stop sending them altogether. Your feet have thousands of sensory receptors that constantly feed your brain positional data. Step height, surface texture, subtle balance shifts. That conversation between your feet and your brain is what keeps you upright when the ground is uneven or when you turn quickly. When those receptors are starved of circulation, the conversation becomes unreliable. The result is balance that is subtly off, just enough to make a fall more likely. Research on glycemic variability and peripheral neuropathy confirms that blood sugar fluctuation is directly associated with nerve damage in the lower extremities. Even in people without diagnosed diabetes, the damage accumulates quietly, well below the threshold of any formal diagnosis. In people whose blood sugar spikes regularly from high glycemic foods. Sweet potatoes also provide meaningful magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins, all supporting muscle function and reducing the nighttime leg cramps that most people accept as inevitable aging. They are not inevitable. They are often a signal the muscles are not getting what they need. Bake them, mash them without loading on butter, cube them into soups. Leave the skin on. The fiber further slows glucose absorption. Make sweet potatoes the routine choice, not the occasional one. The third food is kale. And before you move past this, let me share one specific thing about it that most people have never heard. Kale is one of the richest plant sources of vitamin K1 available. And vitamin K1 plays a role that almost no one talks about, but that directly affects the circulation in your legs. Here is what is happening inside aging arteries. Calcium can, over time, end up in the wrong place. Instead of being directed into bone tissue, where it belongs, it can accumulate inside artery walls. This process, vascular calcification, makes arteries rigid and reduces their ability to carry blood efficiently. The legs, the furthest part of the circulation network from the heart, feel the consequences first. Stiff arteries, reduced blood flow, cold feet, unreliable balance. Vitamin K1 is involved in activating proteins that help keep calcium out of artery walls and direct it toward bone tissue instead. Research published in peer-reviewed literature has consistently found associations between adequate vitamin K intake and reduced progression of vascular calcification. A clinical trial involving postmenopausal women found that those in the vitamin K group had significantly lower cardiovascular mortality compared to the placebo group over 3 years. Kale also contains lutein. Most people think of lutein as an eye nutrient. It does protect vision, but lutein also crosses the blood-brain barrier and accumulates in brain tissue. Researchers at the University of Georgia conducted a randomized controlled trial with 62 adults over age 60 and found that 1 year of lutein and zeaxanthin supplementation produced significant improvements in complex attention, executive function, and mental flexibility compared to placebo. Why does that matter for your legs? Because most falls do not happen because the legs suddenly give out. They happened because the legs wobbled and the brain did not respond fast enough to correct it. That reaction window is a fraction of a second. What you eat over months either keeps that window sharp or lets it slowly widen. Massage kale leaves with a little olive oil before eating raw. It breaks down the fibers and makes it gentler on digestion. Saute it lightly, chop it into soups. 1 to 2 cups several times a week gives your body a meaningful supply of exactly what it needs. Now we get to the part I want you to pay the most careful attention to. This is where well-intentioned, health-conscious seniors are quietly making themselves worse without ever knowing it. The first food to be cautious about is corn. Corn is not poison, but for older adults eating it regularly, there is a problem that almost no one connects to what is happening in their legs. Corn has one of the most imbalanced fatty acid profiles of any common food. It is very high in omega-6 fatty acids and has almost no omega-3 content to counterbalance it. This matters because of what that ratio does to inflammation inside your body. Human beings evolved eating a diet where the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids was approximately 1-to-1. Research by Dr. Artemis Simopoulos, published in the journal Experimental Biology and Medicine, confirmed that modern Western diets have pushed that ratio to between 15-to-1 and 17-to-1. Corn and corn-based oils are significant contributors to this shift. And when omega-6 intake is this far out of balance, the body's inflammatory pathways operate in a state of chronic low-grade activation. Chronic inflammation does not feel like anything dramatic at first. It works quietly inside the walls of your blood vessels, inside the capillaries that supply your leg nerves. Over time, it degrades exactly the tissues that keep you stable and mobile. It stiffens artery walls. It disrupts nerve signal transmission in the lower extremities. Corn also carries a high glycemic index, comparable to white bread, meaning you are getting both the inflammatory omega-6 burden and the blood sugar spike at the same time. A 40-year-old body absorbs that load with reserve capacity. A body over 65 already operating with less vascular and neural buffer cannot, I am not saying never eat corn again, but if it appears on your plate several times a week as a side dish, in soups, in processed snacks, you may be adding sustained fuel to a fire that is not making itself known to you in any obvious way. The consequence shows up slowly in legs that are a little less reliable 6 months from now than they are today. If this is making sense, leave a comment with the word stronger right now. The second food to be careful with might genuinely surprise you. It is canned tomatoes. Fresh tomatoes are excellent. They contain lycopene, a powerful antioxidant with documented cardiovascular benefits. This is not about tomatoes. This is about what happens when tomatoes are processed and stored in metal cans. Two specific issues arise, and both are directly relevant to circulation and leg health after 65. The first is BPA. Bisphenol A is found in the epoxy resin lining of most metal food cans. Tomatoes are a particular problem because their high acidity accelerates the leaching of BPA from the lining into the food. A crossover trial conducted by researchers at Harvard found that eating canned soup for just 5 consecutive days increased urinary BPA concentrations by over 1,200% compared to eating soup made from fresh ingredients. Research published in the journal Hypertension, studying adults aged 60 and older, found that consuming canned beverages significantly raised blood pressure, and this effect was directly tied to BPA exposure. BPA mimics estrogen in the body, disrupts hormonal balance, and has been independently associated with increased cardiovascular risk factors, including hypertension and markers of vascular inflammation. The second issue is sodium. Commercial canned tomatoes typically contain 200 to 400 milligrams of sodium per half cup. For older adults, excess sodium causes the body to retain fluid. That fluid accumulates in the legs and creates pressure on the small blood vessels supplying the muscles and nerves. That pressure, persistent, not painful at first, reduces how well those tissues receive oxygen and nutrients over time. The fix is straightforward. Use fresh tomatoes when practical. When fresh is not an option, look specifically for canned tomatoes labeled BPA-free and no salt added. That one consistent swap removes 2 quiet sources of vascular stress from your kitchen. The third food is the one I want you to share with someone you care about. Almost every older adult I know is eating this regularly, and almost none of them have any idea what it is doing to their nutritional foundation. The third food to be careful with is iceberg lettuce, and this is different from the other two. Iceberg lettuce is not actively causing harm. What it is doing is something researchers call nutrient displacement. In a body over 65, that displacement has consequences that are just as real. Iceberg lettuce lettuce is approximately 96% water. What it does not contain is almost the entire list of nutrients your aging legs, arteries, and nervous system are counting on. It has almost no vitamin K, the compound that helps keep calcium in bone and out of artery walls. Almost no folate, the B vitamin that protects blood vessel linings. Almost no lutein, the carotenoid that crosses into brain tissue and supports the processing speed your brain needs to catch a stumble before it becomes a fall. Almost no magnesium, the mineral that supports muscle function and reduces nighttime leg cramps. Think about the person who makes a large salad every single day, proud of the habit, and rightly so. But if that salad is built on a foundation of iceberg lettuce, they are filling a bowl with something that is 96% water and calling it nutritious, while their body quietly runs short of the exact compounds it needs most. You can only eat so much food in a day. Every bite of something that delivers almost nothing is a bite you are not taking of something that could genuinely help you. Over months and years, that quiet displacement adds up to real deficiencies. Vitamin K shortfall leads to more arterial calcium buildup. Folate shortfall leads to more vascular inflammation. Magnesium shortfall leads to more muscle cramps and reduced lower body function. The fix requires almost no effort. Swap iceberg lettuce for spinach, kale, arugula, or romaine. 10 seconds at the grocery store. The difference in what your body receives is significant and cumulative. I want to step back for a moment and talk to you directly. I know that getting older is not always straightforward. The body does not always respond the way it used to. And some mornings, things simply feel different than they did 10 years ago. That is real. But here is what I also know after years of watching this. The human body has a remarkable capacity to respond to better inputs at any age. Not overnight, but consistently and measurably when the right things are put into it over time. I have watched people in their 70s and 80s make small, deliberate changes to what they eat and walk with more confidence, stand with more steadiness, and move with more freedom than they had in years. The choices you make at the table today are shaping the person you will be 6 months from now. The legs that carry you to where you want to go, to the people you want to see. That is what this is actually about. Not nutrients, your independence. Here is what I want you to do starting today. Replace white potatoes with sweet potatoes as your default starch. Put beets into your regular rotation 3 times a week, roast it in a salad, or blend it into a smoothie. Swap iceberg lettuce for a dark green at the grocery store this week. Honestly assess how often corn appears in your meals and begin reducing it where it is heaviest. Check canned tomato labels and move to BPA-free, no salt added versions. None of this requires significant time or money. Each one is a practical decision you can make this week. Here is what you now understand that most people will never be told. After 65, the body processes certain foods differently. Arterial stiffness, declining nerve signal speed, and reduced tolerance for inflammatory foods create a landscape where specific dietary choices carry consequences that simply did not apply the same way 20 years ago. Beets, sweet potatoes, and kale are working actively with that changed landscape. Corn eaten in excess, canned tomatoes, and iceberg lettuce are working against it consistently over the months and seasons where the difference between a stable body and a vulnerable one is quietly being decided. You earned the right to live these years on your own terms with your balance, your confidence, and the ability to walk where you want to go. Every meal is a quiet decision about what those years look like. You now have the knowledge to make those decisions count. Drop a comment right now with the word "I informed." If this gave you something real today, think of one person you know over 65 who still relies on iceberg lettuce as the base of their healthy eating. Send them this video right now, not later. Right now, subscribe to this channel. My mission is to give you honest, research-grounded health information that most people only find out about after something has already gone wrong. You deserve to know it before that happens. In my next video, I will cover the specific supplements that research supports for healthy blood pressure in older adults, and the 2 popular ones the evidence consistently fails to back. You will not want to miss it. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice. Dietary changes must be individualized based on your complete medical history and current health status. Never adjust or discontinue any prescribed medication without first consulting your healthcare provider.